All set.
Sounds good. So first of all, let's get the meeting for, what is this meeting? Let me read it out loud just a second. Where are my notes? The meeting for Diversity, Equity, and Anti-Racism Subcommittee for November 30th on Monday at 7 p.m. Call to order. So the first thing on our agenda is the approval of minutes for the October 29th, 2020 meeting. Do I have a motion for the approval?
So moved.
Second.
So roll call vote for this. Member Bennett?
Can I just ask something?
Yeah, go ahead.
I just didn't know if we might be able to, and I'm sorry I didn't, I meant to email this earlier and didn't get to. Would it be possible to just kind of clean up under one section, or maybe it's not worthwhile, but under item 4, the policy review, I think that we have doubled up a paragraph and some bullet notes. I didn't know if we could just strike the bullets and then move to approve as corrected. I think is that the correct motion?
Right now, the current motion was to talk about the draft as is. Are you making a motion to have an amendment to this particular, the way it's written?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if it's worthwhile. I just, I guess I'll find out if it's worthwhile if I don't get a second or if I do. So yes, I'd like to make a motion to correct the minutes to strike the bullets that are under section 4, the policy review of number 6437.
6437. Okay. You're proposing to strike all of it, or which parts?
No, just the bullet points, because I think they're doubled up, the paragraph and the bullets. And if this is like ridiculous, that's fine.
Do I have a second for that motion?
Hi, this is Linda. I'm getting very scratchy interference with people's voices. Is anyone else having that?
No.
No? Okay.
No, I'm not.
I might try to sign off and then sign back in. Okay?
Okay.
Thanks. All right.
What motion are you looking at, Linda, before we...
Just on the minutes, I was just asking if we could strike the bullet points that are under item number 4, the policy review for 6437. Oh, yeah, to strike just the bullet points.
Oh, the bullet points on that?
Yeah, because it's doubled up. The paragraph has those same items. And again, if this dies for, for lack of a second, that's...
Okay.
That makes sense. If it's already in the paragraph ahead, it doesn't need to. Oh, yeah. It's after the paragraph, right? Okay. Second, yeah.
Did you not get a second?
No, it was seconded.
Okay.
Is there any discussion?
The only thing I'll say is I had intended to email out just a quick correction on those, and I lost track of time before the meeting began. So.
The only thing that I see that's not not that I really think it matters, but I know it says review before next subcommittee meeting, but in our bullet points, we actually said in advance of November 19th. So I think like either we add in that date somewhere or we just leave it as is, but that's the only difference I see. If there is no more discussion, I will start doing a roll call vote. Member Woodland?
Woodland, yes.
Member Ayala,
Ayala, yes.
Member Bennett,
Bennett, yes.
Member, oh, God, Malia's not on. Okay. Member Christianbaum,
Kirschenbaum, yes.
Member Longbelio, Linda,
Sorry, I just signed. I was completely unable to hear anybody till I just switched to Chrome. So I have to abstain because I don't know what you're asking me.
okay, no problem, no problem. If you want me to explain it, she just wanted to take out the bullet points under under number 4, the
Ah.
second policy. So
I
just
wasn't able to
taking out
follow
all
any
the
of
bullet
that.
points.
I'm
Okay.
sorry, I wasn't able to follow any of that because of my technical difficulties. So I'm
Okay,
going to have to abstain. Thanks.
no problem. And I vote yes. That passes. Moving on to our next item on our agenda. Let me just get the agenda.
We actually have to pass the minutes now, don't we?
Yes, now we have to go back and pass the minutes because we made that amendment. So the amendment passes. Now let's pass the minutes back to the original motion. Any discussion on that other than the motion we just made?
Did you mind telling me what we just did real quick?
Yep, that's what I was trying to say, but I did it probably too quickly. So if you look at our draft minutes, and if you go down to number 4,
Mm-hmm.
a policy review, the second bullet point where it says policy 6437,
Mm-hmm.
under action steps, there's like several bullet points.
Mm-hmm.
And what Linda was saying, what Member Woodland was saying, that all those bullet points are actually summarized in the text of the action steps. So it seemed
okay.
redundant to have all that bullet points. So
Okay.
yeah, we were just going to take out all those bullet points.
Okay. Well, it's probably still good that I didn't vote. So, so anyway, thanks.
Any other discussion other than that before we take a vote for the minutes? Okay, hearing nobody having comments, let's go down the roll call. Member Woodland,
I appreciate you guys' patience. Woodland, yes.
Member Ayala,
Ayala, yes.
Member Bennett,
Bennett, yes.
Member Christianbaum,
Kirschenbaum, yes.
Member Longbelio,
Longbelio, yes.
and I vote yes. So our next item on agenda, to approve the minutes. We already did this, right? Wait a second, sorry, I'm looking at the wrong paper here. Just a second. There we go. Looks like it's the bullying prevention intervention plan to review the comments from the public. Brendan, did you want to read these out loud?
Sure. I just wanted to propose a way that we could go through this and see what people think.
Sure.
And after doing that, I could just review the dates for public comment and what we asked the public to do. So the first thing, and I'm going to be doing minutes at the same time, so I might ask for a little bit of help with that as we go through. Linda, thank you so much. I'll be doing most of it. So let me share my screen because I think the visual will help. And stand by one moment. Okay. All right, is that readable is the first question. Need a little more zoom? All right, we'll zoom. A little more? Better or worse or the same? Like an eye doctor? Okay.
No, it looks good.
That's good. All right. So I was thinking that we could go down each column. So looking at what people liked about the plan, what they would change, and then any other comments. If we did that column by column, I thought that would make sense just to cluster them that way. Does that make sense? Does that work for everyone?
Yep.
Okay. So with that, I'm just going to hide a few columns, and then I'll just review the dates here. So we, on November 5th, sent this by way of school messenger out to everyone that is on our emailing list. And we asked for comments, and this was done through a Google form. The comments were through the 15th of November. And that's when the window closed. That was at the end of a weekend, I believe. And we did get quite a few people that responded. And it was member Kirschenbaum that said it'd be good to have some demographic data about who was responding. So we did that. So we'll start with that, just as skimming down the list. I had quite a few parent guardians. You'll see here we had some people that were multiple roles, parent, faculty, staff, and community member, which we know a lot of our faculty and staff do live in our towns as well. We had a student, few students, and some more parent guardians. So we had 20 responses here, and this was all shared with everyone prior that's on the committee. So I'm not sure the best way to go through this. We did have that many comments. Some are longer than others. It shouldn't be too much to read through if we want to do that.
If it won't take too long, I think reading through might just, I wouldn't want any particular comment. Well, it might speak to one member and another comment might speak to another member. So I would hate to just gloss over it. So if we can just quickly read through it, that'd be great.
Okay. And would it be helpful if I read it out loud, or would you rather?
Can I ask a question? I'm trying to find the original bullying prevention plan. Am I missing something that was attached? Not the original, but I mean the revision that people were commenting on, just so I can.
Sure. So, yep, I can reshare that with.
Would you? That would be really helpful. Thank you.
Anybody else that would like that, I can send that to you right now. Just let me know. Okay. It's coming to your WRSD email, Linda.
Thank you very much.
Okay. And yeah, Kate, let me share the responses with you. Okay. And we should be all set now. Okay. All right. So is it helpful if I read, or if we could take turns reading, I suppose?
Please go ahead and start reading.
Okay. So these are the responses for what do you like about the plan? It attempts to protect students. Excellent incorporation of restorative practices approach. Involvement of programs specified in lessons at middle and high school. And somebody said, well, obviously doctors and lawyers wrote this. If you're one of them, I'm sure it makes perfect sense. It is very comprehensive, and I appreciate the operational definitions at the back covering each role. These were a couple duplicates here. Need more, so needs more student ongoing education and dialogue. No comment. It's a very cohesive plan, and I like the research-based curricula. I like that it is organized and it says everything people need to know. All right, let's see. It's a longer one. I think that the weekly professional development is a great idea. This gives teachers time to gain knowledge about what may be going on and how to deal with it. It's extremely important as times progress that teachers are taught new techniques. Unfortunately, as technology gets developed, students are more regularly getting bullied. It also gives teachers time to learn new things after teaching the same topics every year to multiple classes. Not to mention how this positively impacts the students. It gives us a break from class and the computer while remote. I also really like the counseling aspect of the plan. This gives us a chance for all students to speak their minds. The counselors also stand as great role models for the students. Student surveys are a great addition to the plan. It lets us have a voice and give us the idea that we are all improving the school together. The training for self-awareness and self-management are also wonderful. This teaches us how to deal with conflicts properly in a way that will improve ourselves emotionally. It also gives us tips to better become students, to become a better student, which isn't regularly addressed. This is preparing us for the real world. I also really like the bullying referral form. Parents often don't know what to do if their children. Everyone could just mute if you're
Sorry.
But I think I like that. That's a nice little classical song.
Thank you. It was the best ring I could find. So it's a house phone.
That's a great idea, Bob. Yep. It also gives us tips to better become a better student, which isn't regularly addressed. This is preparing us for the real world. I also like the bullying referral form. Parents often don't know what to do if their child is a victim of bullying. This gives parents more guidance. It's a very thoughtful response from a student. It's very thorough. Reporting is easy for any party concerned of bullying, and response to report is well designated to appropriate school officials. It's comprehensive. Plan appears to be detailed, is well organized, and defines terms that administrators, students, and parents can reference. Okay. Be good. I think we had a discussion about there's a lot there. Any thoughts on this?
Just a quick question. Was this survey sent out to everybody?
It was.
Okay. And we only got the 21 responses.
We did. Yeah.
Wow. I'm surprised.
Yeah.
It looks like mostly positive feedback, though, which is good.
Other comments on what people wrote or anything you noticed?
Well, I was curious about the zero tolerance, the point made about zero tolerance. You know, I didn't see that language in the bullying and prevention plan. And, you know, I tend to agree that a zero tolerance policy kind of is not always helpful and can sometimes fly in the face of what Linda Woodland was describing as restorative justice. Depending on how it's implemented. So I was trying to figure out what people thought was meant by that. What aspect of the policy was zero tolerance other than bullying should be reported? Any thoughts about that?
So I interpreted that comment as not something that they were observing, but as present in the plan, but observing that zero tolerance is not in the plan, and that's a good thing. But I mean, that was my interpretation of that one comment, because the continuation of that thought from that feedback was about needing to report low key under the radar instances as well. And so that, I mean, that could be lumped in with the zero tolerance aspect, but since they were criticizing that aspect, I don't know, I took it as observing that there wasn't something in the plan.
Yeah, that does make sense. That makes sense.
But,
thank you.
So I think for viewers at home that may be tuning in or checking this out at a later date, that zero tolerance comment is actually in the next column that we haven't actually addressed yet.
Oh, okay. All right. Sorry.
So no, I think it is an important comment, but I think that it might be a little out of order if folks haven't had a chance to are tuning in from and seeing this for the first time.
Okay, sorry. I was trying to read back and forth between the prevention plan and the comments, and I'm listening to the comments as we were going as well. So sorry if I jumped ahead.
That's okay. This the next column is what would you change about the plan, and I think that's where that comment refers to.
Okay, thank you. Sorry.
I actually found it interesting that even though there's only been a small number of people that responded, we got almost everyone in those groups responding: teachers, staff, a student, a parent, guardian, and overall, positive comments. So as much as I would have loved more, I think that's a good start.
Mm-hmm.
Any other comments on what people like about the plan, or anything you noticed that is worth highlighting? Okay, I'm going to go on to what they would change about the plan. So let me just hide this column. All right, and if you're not sick of my voice, I will continue to read. Yep, and this is the one that Linda was talking about. Zero tolerance does not work. The bullied needs to be able to defend themselves. Maybe include anti-racism language, plan for potential hate crimes, definitions on teasing, harassment, and sexual assault, differentiate bullying versus pure conflict. SEL prevention program at the pre-K level. Second step is not sufficient given the diverse learning needs of the ECC. Teachers would like to choose an approved program to include within this initiative other than second step that also meets the SEL state standards. Cut 27 pages out of this. It's way too long and boring for most people to engage this document. You expect 90% of the students and 75% of the teachers to truly have this ingrained in them and get something from this. You better set aside a month to teach and train everyone. Come on, people, short and sweet, enough with the legal language. Needs to be more prescript instead of principal will make determination. Leaves such gray area for inexperienced principals with kick the can down the road mentality. Scroll down. I worry that bullies are often bullied as well, dealing with their own social emotional challenges, or may be abused. I wonder if on page 16, letter D or H, it would be possible to somehow indicate that. In addition, and I apologize if I missed it, maybe there's a way to call out consideration that in addition to consequences, there will be plans to address the root causes of the bullying as appropriate. I'd like to see unconscious bias training for students and faculty added to the plan. We all have unconscious bias, and when we understand what they are, we can pause and reflect before causing hurt to another. Notification process to parents of both aggressor and victim. We need to have student education, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade about differences, religion, LGBTQ, awareness of different cultures, African, Black, American, Asian, etc. The Holocaust. My child was bullied and targeted in and out of school with hate, not just how to discipline. My child's bullying gave instructions on how to kill himself.
Oh.
You need to have student education, 6, 7, okay, hold on, same one, right? Yeah, that's a repeat comment. In the form, please add a place for people to add photos such as screenshots. This is extremely important when reporting something. Okay, hold on, all right. I'd like to see unconscious bias, hold on. It's the same one, maybe not. I'd like to see unconscious bias training for students and faculty added to the plan. We all, yeah, I think it's the same.
Yeah, it is the same.
Thank
But
you.
I think those are the only duplicates.
Okay, thanks. All right, I understand the need for behavior plans such as PBIS, and I would like to see students more intrinsically motivated. I would love to have an approach to curriculum that places emphasis on meaningful engagement, sense of agency, and dialogic conversations. The book, Engaging Literate Minds, Developing Children's Social, Emotional, and Intellectual Lives, K3, by Peter Johnston, offers many practical ways to develop a caring, learning community and children's social, emotional competence. In fact, I'm currently working to build classrooms that are socially and emotionally healthy so that children can thrive intellectually in the district where I work. This person will not change anything. The only thing I would change about the plan is to add training for how to act with special needs. When people bully or intimidate, I believe, special needs students, it is because they are different. If students get training on how to interact and how to react to special needs, it will allow students to understand special needs more. This will limit the bullying on special needs. Nothing, none, not applicable. All right, there's a longer one here. Wachusett Regional School District mission statement. And the mission statement, the working seeks to ensure is an oxymoron because if one is seeking, they cannot ensure. I would change this to seeks to foster. The statement continues with values all students should gain in their time in the Wachusett Regional School District. In this statement, I believe several keywords and phrases should be added, including collaborative learning environment, intellectual curiosity and independent thinking, accepting and tolerant learning environments for all students, Academic and non-academic activities. This section describes how the curriculum will help students be able to identify their own emotions, feelings, and expression. The strategies listed are necessary. However, it is often implicit bias which causes bullying behaviors. In addition to social emotional curriculums, students and staff must complete anti-racism and diversity, equity, inclusion training, and curriculum. Let me see if I can scroll down without going too far, but this is the end. Definitions. Part 1, bullying, Clause 4 states infringes on the rights of victims. In this section, the rights of students should be listed explicitly. Another word that may be included is bystander, individual who is not the victim or aggressor, but views of conflict between them. Responsibilities of this individual should be outlined. Microaggressions should be defined and incorporated throughout the policy as indicators of bullying behaviors. An additional section outlining the purpose of this policy should be added, as it will give guidelines on exactly how the plan should be implemented and interpreted. In this guide, an outline of how bullying specifically will be addressed must be included to ensure that just punishments are administered and restorative justice practices followed. Thank you for considering these revisions of the proposed bullying policy. People really took a lot of time in giving these pieces of feedback. So that's the end of that section of what people would change. Anything, any discussion about that? Any comments?
I did find it interesting. Two things that stood out to me was I've thought about this myself, but I'm not sure if this goes in the document, but it should be addressed at some point, like outlining the bystander expectations. I know that's part of training, but I understand when someone is reading this document, like, you know, they may not know how to behave unless someone has gone through training or some sort of, you know, educational pamphlet or something to understand what a bystander can do. The other part that I found interesting is they felt that in one of the statements, they felt that things like teasing, bullying, microaggressions, they weren't sure what, you know, the definition of them. What do they look like? How do we categorize them? And again, I'm not sure if we can add that into our document, but that's definitely good questions, because teasing to one person may not be teasing to someone else, or microaggressions may not be recognized. And we're all learning, right? As a community, we're all learning. So I want to be kind of like innovative on how do we address these kind of, you know, vague gray areas that we know that we can have a good step forward without having people say, well, I didn't know, and I didn't understand, and I didn't know what that meant.
Absolutely. It's that skill building aspect of this, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Yep.
So one of the things I noticed in this section of the feedback is most of the comments come back to questioning how is this going to be implemented. And so I don't know if that's something that is functional to have in a plan like this, because I mean and maybe it already is, but perhaps it's not kind of keyed in to how a layperson would recognize it, right? Because you have the curricula listed out, right, for how it would be brought into the classroom and into the school buildings, but it seems like the common theme is what is the implementation and the anticipated reception of the implementation too. And so I don't know if there's a way to highlight it, if it should be highlighted that there are the implementation strategy in there. I mean, with having a curriculum, some people have had listed them out as second step and CBIS, and but that seems to be the driving concern of the people who gave feedback, is how will this actually be seen within the school. So that's where I think that also, I mean, I think that's where like the bystander expectations, categorizing the behavior of what counts as bullying behavior, it seems like those things would be covered in the curricula listed in the appendix, right?
Right.
And so in the way that this policy is going to be used, do those definitions need to be within the policy, or does there just need to be the opening for those to be defined? Because something like microaggression, I think, is a continually evolving term that I don't know if that's really going to have the lasting power that we would want for the policy, or if it would get revised to mean something new. It won't be relevant to the student population in a couple of years when this would be reviewed again.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think, Linda, that makes me think of, how the definition of bullying really has to be inclusive of, not bound in time. It has to, 10 years from now, 20 years from now, be relevant. And yeah, words like microaggression, they're, I don't think we were talking 15 years ago. That definitely wasn't.
No, it's a jazzy new word to minimize the horrible effects of bullying, constant bullying, consistent.
Yeah. Krista, I believe you said previously there's nothing micro about them. I think you said
not at all. And it really, because it happens all day long, little things chip away at people all day long. It's abuse. And, it might not be, one person with all of those micro aggressions, but if it happens continuously all day to one person, it is hugely detrimental to their progress, their ability to learn. Can you imagine? Just one little thing would set you off for the rest of the day then. If yesterday, I like to think of it like you never know what that straw is that broke the camel's back. Like, you don't know if this is the last straw. That might be the last
You
straw.
have an excellent point, Krista. Like, when I always heard microaggression, I didn't take the micro to mean it was tiny in effect. I took micro to mean it was a tiny behavior that had a lot of effect. That was almost unnoticeable.
Maybe.
Right? That's how I took the word microaggression, but it's interesting how you took it as something that somebody might think is really not as benign or very little effect.
Right.
So it might be something, we need to kind of like define or explore, or in the trainings, like talk about as, when you hear this word, which way do you interpret it? Because it's amazing to me how you interpreted it a completely opposite way of the way I had interpreted it.
Yeah, it's actually, there's this really great video explaining what microaggressions do and how they affect you. And I'll send it through everybody, and you can, everyone can view it. It's cute. But it is comparing microaggression to like a mosquito bite, and one is not awful, but like if you have like 12 mosquito bites, like that's just awful. Like that ruins like your day, right? And then if that happens every single day, that you get like 12, 15 mosquito bites, it really, really starts to weigh on you. So it's little bits that really add up and add up and add up and add up. And they're not little. They're not little.
Right.
Anyway, yes, buzz terms like microaggressions. Maybe get rid of that.
Yeah, I agree that we shouldn't put microaggression in this policy. I like the way it's defined as is.
So I have a couple of questions and thoughts about this this column. I agree with the comment that was made that many of the comments speak to the implementation process, what I perceive as the implementation at the school level. At which point I say our responsibility is not appropriate to go there. I feel like our responsibility is to create policy and plans, and correct me if I'm wrong, but to create policy and plans that will be implemented at the discretion of the administration, the principals, and so on and so forth. So if we have a solid plan, how that gets implemented would be sort of part of the planning process of the administration and the staff and so on and so forth. So some of these comments, I think, go beyond the scope of what we're trying to approve here. But the question that I have that really, because I'm still relatively new, especially to the subcommittee, and I haven't studied with fidelity the policy, the numerous policies we have in our district. My question is, what policies have been are needing to be reviewed? For example, I hear words about hate crimes, and I hear the LGBTQ community. Do we have policies that are up to date? Have we reviewed those policies? Are they up to date? Do they include language that is inclusive and protective for those groups? And I guess that's something that I feel like we can take from this discussion and move forward with, is make sure that we have a comprehensive, up-to-date group of policies that focus on students that would be deemed higher risk for such bullying matters.
And Laura,
I think we went through a few policies, and
Yeah, I mean,
we have a few more.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's later on this agenda.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
exactly.
I have a question about getting back to the zero tolerance idea for one moment. I'm wondering if one reason that person made that comment, and Linda Woodland, you may be absolutely right about why they made that comment. You probably are. But one thing that I will say could contribute to that, in addition to what you mentioned, was page 16, the very last bulleted list there, appropriate range of consequences. Why do we start with report to law enforcement and go down the list to the least punitive measures, rather than starting with the least punitive measures and working our way up to reporting people to law enforcement? I mean, we're an educational institution, and I think that our first response, when possible, to misbehavior by a student is to educate them. And so to me, it would make more sense to start with, to reverse the order of that list. And to me, that would be more consistent with the principle of restorative justice that we're trying to that we're trying to rely on here for this policy.
I think I would agree with that.
Yeah, I would absolutely agree.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Oh, good. Thank you.
And it could be aggressive as opposed, start with the lower level response, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's sound. Yeah.
I remember this came up the last time we did the bullying policy. I brought it up, and it passed anyway. But I think it would be much better to reverse the order of those. And I'm glad to hear that others on the committee agree.
Linda, if I could also add to that comment that the J being verbal reprimand, if we're really taking on the spirit of restorative justice, that reprimand is probably an inappropriate word for this list.
Well, I don't know, because sometimes someone really needs to be reprimanded. That's educational. I mean, assuming it's done in a, in the right spirit, so to speak.
Well, reprimand doesn't, it kind of shuts off the whole ability to communicate back and forth about something. Like reprimand is kind of like, and then, maybe kind of like a communication about what we want as a society, as our student body, right? So have that conversation, like, that's not what we're trying to achieve, George. Let's move forward from here, or Bethany, I don't know.
No, I see your point.
What is the heading for this section too? Because I if I remember correctly, there's a separation between in the moment versus we're at the end and we're going through to the final parts of the follow through. And that I think might illuminate why it's reprimand versus something else. Because these are all, I mean, like these all fit within the realm of reprimand. That's in this list.
Mhm.
So I just want to make sure that we're not taking this list out of context.
Mm-hmm. Well, I see that Brendan has written here, add opportunity to repair harm. I mean, that I think, would make sense on the list. I mean, you could put it in with verbal, whatever. What about, but getting back to the language reprimand for just a second, what about verbal communication and or reprimand? What about something like that? And maybe opportunity to repair harm could, I don't know, could be another separate bullet. I don't know. What do people think?
I mean, I see that as an overarching goal, right?
Mm-hmm.
Not
Mhm.
necessarily a bullet point to like something in the toolbox, but it's like
Mm-hmm.
the toolbox that holds all the tools.
Mm-hmm. But to me, it is a tool in the toolbox. So, and it's a consequence, saying, okay, little Johnny, you need to apologize for what you said to little Susie, or whatever name kids have these days, little Ashley.
So maybe like that verbal part is kind of like, communicating the definitions of what the harm was.
Yeah, basically, and saying that's not acceptable. That's not okay.
Right.
You've got to stop.
And why, and
Yes.
that would
Yeah.
be like an. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'd say
empathy conversation.
Yeah. How about verbal? What about just verbal explanation and or reprimand instead of putting a whole lot of words in there? Verbal explanation and or reprimand. That's just a little briefer.
And I think I'm going to actually take this repairing harm out because I scrolled a little further down and we have it.
Oh, okay, great. Okay,
yeah.
great. Oh,
Yeah.
that's right. We do. I see it. Yes.
But yes, get back to this, Jay. Does that look okay to everyone? This J reworded?
So you're going to reverse the order of those, right?
I have a note to do that. I'll do that after.
Great.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Okay. Back here. Anything else with the feedback about what people would change about the plan? We have one more column.
I would just say, Brendan, that I have one more comment, and that speaks to the report. I know that this is probably an individual case. Well, this is an individual case, and the parent is still communicating the issue about being sent, suicide directions. That's really concerning to me. In this kind of anonymous survey, it's hard to track that back, but I would hope that doesn't happen often in our district, and so maybe that case is a little bit easier for someone to dig around and find from the administration's side, from the school side. But I would hope that would be something that had a restoration to it of some sort, or a resolution of some sort. That's really concerning to me, and I think that it's worth noting here.
And it sounds very unresolved too, to your point, Laura. I mean, since this is a public meeting, it's important. It's a good opportunity for me to say, and I say this to parents, anytime there's a loose thread or a open wound that they're feeling, to see it through to resolution. And, typically that involves talking to whoever at the school level the original issue happened with. You can definitely, when I was working directly with parents closely, I always welcome that because, I always said my biggest nightmare really is that there were a bunch of bad feelings out in the community about what I said or did, so that's a way that, parents can hold all of us accountable too, to make sure we're doing it right by kids. So, and there's also other ways to resolve too, but just starting with a conversation, I know that can be hard too, being a parent and, speaking up to a school and to people in the school, but it's so important. And I've seen really good things happen because this is all related to restorative practices. It's relationship building, relationship repair, and it's really, really important to do that at all levels. So I just want to mention that.
So just to be clear, if that parent is listening today, that you would encourage them to reach out back to the school and try and find some resolution.
Oh, definitely. And it's never too late to do that, even if it's a while back. So it's one of my, really, really important.
Thank you.
Can I ask a question about the hate crime aspect of this? Because I know it was brought up before, but is there a section that deals with hate crime? Because like legally they are punished harder than someone that doesn't really commit a hate crime. So is there anything to that discretion in the policy? I might have missed it.
In the policy that we're looking at, not in the bullying plan, but in the policy, that's the second part of the, it's in there. Okay. Yeah, that one will take a while to sort through, but that's where that one lives. Yeah. And I could mention too, the investigation procedures are much stronger in this new bullying plan than in the previous one. They're just better. And those processes are used for investigating other types of issues as well, including harassment, hate crimes. So it does parallel, even though it's not specifically mentioned in there. Yeah.
And then I just have one other comment. On page 11 of the plan, under non-academic bullying prevention efforts, the first bullet is the administration will review student behavioral expectations during assemblies during the first few weeks of school. I would just like to say those were not reviewed with any grade high school students this year, and it is in the old policy as well. So if we're not upholding it, I'm not necessarily sure it should be in the policy. I mean, or if we should look into that, but I have checked with students of all grades and they have not heard it this year from the high school administration. Not to throw high school administration under the bus. They're fantastic, but just to put it out there that it wasn't reviewed this year. So.
Okay. All right, thanks, Kate.
Thank you for that information. I think that, Kate, I think that it should stay in our policy and it should be something that is definitely implemented as well. So thank you for bringing that to our attention. I would also add one more comment that was made was updating the form to include options for screenshots. I think that's a simple and worthwhile suggestion there. So something simple to implement is to put in the form a place for people to put evidence.
Yeah, I'll make a note here.
Thank you.
Yeah, I had a question about that too. If there was another part of the process that would be looking for that kind of evidence already, or if it would be best to be in the form itself, especially the website form.
Yeah, I mean, people do that anyways. In the bullying reports I see, often that is, especially for cyberbullying, obviously, that's we'll get pages and pages on our email of screenshots. So maybe what you're saying, this might be within the body of it instead of in the form itself, in the body of the document.
Yeah, I hadn't looked back, but that was in my notes to do, was to see if there was in the.
We definitely don't have that word in the document. I just did a quick search. So
yeah, I think that would be an example of a word that I would like to see in the document that I don't think is going to be going anywhere anytime soon. I think we're going to be using the term screenshot for quite some time.
Yep, I'll just have to find where that would be best, a best fit, but probably somewhere around here, an investigation. I'll make sure that's added before we put this to the full committee.
Yeah, I think, Brendan, maybe evidence such as, you know, screenshots, video, whatever, you know, but maybe call it evidence, and then you could specify what some of that evidence might be.
Yeah. Right, and probably, yeah, we'll find a good spot for it, but that would be in the investigation part, so. Yeah, but I have a note to add that. Anything else for these comments about what would be changed? Okay, I'll just go quickly down. This was the catch-all. We always include these in surveys because that way we get all the feedback people are hoping to give us. Right, so 603 CMR 49 or this plan, okay, doesn't indicate how the parents are notified. Notification of verdict must be done in a legal manner, meaning in writing and mailed via certified mail and standard mail if they don't accept certified to both parties. This is required because it is evidence that may be needed in court at a later date. A verbal phone call is not acceptable evidence. Please add specific communication method to plan as noted above so as to provide proper legal documentation of event and decision. Thank you. See above comment, that was their previous comment. Sorry. Thank you for all the excellent work that you do for our children and the community. I have a question. How are you going to prevent bullying? I don't think all kids will listen very well. This plan was extremely thoughtful and well needed. This plan will definitely improve the mental health of teachers and students. We hope you put the same effort into anti-discrimination prevention and addressing it when it happens. Bullying and racism and other forms of harassment are not the same. If racism got this much attention from the district, it would be a much welcoming place. It angers and frustrates me to see in-depth investigation of section of this guide, because when it comes to kids using the N-word against others, mocking kids of their race and heritage, and other disgusting behavior, even perpetrated by teachers and staff, all administration does is say, sorry, no one was there to hear it, or that doesn't happen at our school. It's time for WRSD to do a better job. I've used restorative justice to mediate and resolve these types of conflicts with overwhelmingly positive results from a parent. And finally, I would like to hear more about the section about the collection, analyzing, and reporting on building and district-wide data on past bullying incidents to understand trends and patterns as to how the records retention plan will be executed. I have been advocating for this type of database, and I'm wondering about the extent of the scope and transparency. Okay. All right, any thoughts or comments on this last bit of feedback?
I'm noticing that there's a little bit of a, or maybe a lot of it of a lack of faith that any sort of plan is going to do what we all hope that it does. And hearing Catherine say that they didn't even do that one simple thing talk about you know, how students are to behave, it kind of makes me question too, just like that one thing that the school was supposed to and has been supposing to do, and they haven't been doing that. So it does make me worry a little bit, but all we can do is set the plans in motion and hope that they are implemented the way that they are intended to be.
Actually, I have a question about that with the assemblies in the beginning of the year. Is it this year under remote, or has it been ongoing over the years that these haven't been, you know, that it hasn't happened in the beginning of the year? Do we know that, or is it just under this year's unique circumstances?
In all honesty, I can't remember. I know we always have assemblies, but I brought this to the Diversity Inclusion Club at the high school and asked them to review sections of it. And that was sort of just one of the comments that came up was this didn't happen this year. I can't speak to past years because I don't remember them, but I know at the assembly this year it didn't happen. It might have happened in years past, but I don't know. And I don't want to give false information to say that it didn't happen if it did, or that it did happen and it didn't, because that could be a big issue. So I don't want to give you false information, but I know a lot of the students are also concerned that it won't be implemented. And most of it's out of fear that they were bullied in the past and there was a plan in the past and it didn't help them then. And they're afraid that this is going to do the same. And hopefully it fixes it, but I know that's still a fear for many of our students. So
I think the plan's only the beginning. This is really getting more to the investigation part of things. So it's when things have not gone well or gone wrong. So, I've said this many times, we're trying to do better than that. Trying to be on the front end of this, building school cultures where every kid feels welcomed. That's really tied to the SEL work that is on my plate. So, yeah.
I was just about to say about the social emotional learning. I think that's how things are going to get out there more. Kids are going to be informed more. Kids will inform their parents more on what they've learned through social emotional learning, hopefully at school. And I'm wondering also health curriculums. I know we lack in the health department in some schools, but I'm wondering if health education, I know this type of stuff way back in the day when I was in school, that's how we learned about bullying and how to prevent it and why not to bully and, all the ins and outs about it. Is that something that health and safety can touch upon? Because I know social emotional learning is just coming into play. We're trying to get more counselors into schools and stuff like that. So I think we're in process of getting there, but I'm wondering if the health, whichever schools have a health department up and running, are they able to touch upon this more so? I guess that's my biggest question. I don't know.
Well, I can't speak to our specific staffing for health. It's my impression that we have little to no health teachers in the district, and somebody can correct me if I'm wrong. And at the high school, I don't even want to speak to it because I don't have those numbers ready. But to your point, Melissa, the health and it's fallen out of my head right now. But the curriculum standards for those subject areas are all very connected. There's a whole bunch in there about self-advocacy, empowerment, and confidence, and all of this stuff, which is all tied to prevention of bullying. And this comes up a lot in our district too, is having adequate staff, like health staff, for example, to do it. And I don't have a good answer for that right now, but that would be a really good place for all this to sit, in addition to counselors and all of that. So.
I just think that's where the gap is happening probably a lot of the time. And that's why we're getting this feedback saying we're worried it's not going to happen. So
is there a reason why there's a lack, a humongous lack of in humongous department? It's a really big part of schooling, or it was when there was always a health department. So I just don't know where that disappeared to. Is there a reason that kind of was?
Krista, funding.
Funding, really?
I think
so. Oh my God.
I've only been on here a short time, but my understanding is that 2008 and on did quite a number on what we have for staffing. Not just the classroom teachers that we might hear about more, but these other positions too that fill up and kind of buoy a school culture of safety and inclusion. So, we were going to this year, right? We had it passed before COVID that we were going to start adding in school counselors. But I mean, we're in a holding pattern at this point.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
I just wanted to say, I think at the elementary level, that a lot of that kind of self-advocacy and that part of the plan, it seems like it's largely carried out by the school psychologists, right? So they're splitting their time between their IEP duties and then also like the mindfulness training, and these other SEL aspects, and like the anti-bullying curriculum as well.
Yeah.
Is that's largely taken up by the school psychologists, right?
At the elementary level, that's true. Yeah. And I work a lot with, supporting the school psychologists, really creative group, and they are very tied into the SEL work. They're innovators. It's a really, great group to work with. They do a lot with, I say, not the resource lack, but time. I mean, there's so many responsibilities. It's kind of the story of our district, the multiple hats story, right? We all end up wearing multiple. So, yeah.
I know this isn't like policy, and this might not be our area, but I know that in other districts that I've been involved with, they had a lot of parent involvement to have those things, to implement those certain learning tools, like Project Cornerstone. They would have a parent come in and read that lesson, present a little lesson in there. It was like an hour per week or something that they would do Project Cornerstone and address those things. So if we're lacking in teachers, would it be appropriate for the community, not the community, but the schools to request more parental involvement for those things, maybe?
And that's definitely one way to, and when I was a principal in another district, we had a lot of parents doing SEL work. We didn't call it that, but it's coming in and reading, and they were really doing that. The other ways too is through creative community partnerships. And prior to COVID, we were pretty close to making some progress on at least one of those that I'm now getting back into. It became impossible to do what we wanted to do given that schools were closed. So, but those are different avenues to look at, and we need to think creatively in this district with our low funding about these things. So, parent volunteers are one way, Krista. Community partnerships, grants too. That's another piece that there's a lot of SEL grants out there right now. Typically, those grants are targeted to urban districts. That's just typical for most grants, but there are more and more coming out that are we might be eligible for. So, yeah, and that's all really my primary role in the district. So absolutely.
So can I ask you, Brendan, from a school committee point of view, from where we're sitting, when you're looking at things like grants and these community partnerships, do you have what you need? I mean, what could the school committee be doing to support these SEL needs that we have?
Yeah, part of it you're already doing. I would say it's keeping SEL at the forefront of the conversation, which obviously we've been, we've had to pull away from it a little bit because we've been in the health and safety mode for good reason with the pandemic. But it's honestly, it's pushing the conversation forward and finding connections, even in curriculum, where we can find inroads with SEL. So right now there's not really specific support, I would say. We actually, pretty optimistic about when the air clears a little bit here and you know, we can get a little bit up at Maslow's hierarchy and not be in the health and safety. You know, we'll be able to do some more preventative things. I am meeting with some people about, you know, really how we can do more work around, you know, adult wellness, looking at, you know, our staff and in some cases our parents and how they're doing. That's one reason we did that webinar at the beginning of the school year about raising your child, you know, during COVID. You know, things like that that are feeding what people need. Our staff too, you know, very high level of stress with our staff, administration, faculty, and staff. You know, really, you know, high levels of toxic stress, and it's not just in Wachusett; it's everywhere. So, you know, that offer of you know, what you can do, it's really just you know, coming with creative ideas, and also at times we may ask for some of you to help in our community outreach. You know, I'm a social worker by training, so I'm always looking for creative partnerships too. Higher ed is a really good place to tap into. You know, I've already done a bit of that work, so it's a long answer, but you know, basically just really you know, keeping it, you know, at the forefront of the public's mind of how important all this work is. And that SEL is not just the warm fuzzy stuff, as some people say, it's actually integral to students doing well.
If I could just say one more thing about some of the comments that we've heard in this column, but also in general. You know, I'm hearing over and over what has been said on row number 18, which is maybe there's an investigation, but yet, you know, we're sorry no one was there to hear it, or you know, the allegation falls on deaf ears, and so it doesn't go anywhere. So I guess you know, the simple things. What can the district do, you know, to at least address some of those you know, those things that are happening to students, and validate those things that are happening to students, and do something about those things that are happening to students. Their perception is reality. I know I'm preaching the choir on that, Brendan, with you, but I think that you know, we have to empower our teaching staff and our students to see something. If you see something, say something, because it's not okay.
Yeah.
You know, if it makes you feel, you know, yucky, if it makes you feel a certain way that's not good, you need to say something. And then there needs to be some trust. I think that was mentioned earlier, that if a teacher, you know, that a teacher will bring it forward and that something will be done. I think just those are things that are in our control. You know, budget might not be in our control, but how we respond to students' allegations and experiences as an educational community is hugely important. And it seems like there's a little bit too much reporting of things just being brushed under the rug, and that's disturbing to me. And I hope that this plan, as well as some of the other work moving forward, will address those things.
Right, and absolutely, Laura. And I think I know that the power differential between like a school and a family is a really big factor in any district. And you know, I'm still just over a year here in Wachusett, but you know, you think of what would cause some parents to say, I'm just going to let it go. I'm not going to like see this through to the end. I'm still mad at the school, but I'm just going to let it go. Typically, when I talk to parents, they do that because they're worried about causing more issues than solving. Like they don't want to hear stir the pot, or you know, get the water. You know, I'm not good with my things today, but you know, the whole idea is like we really want to have as level a playing field in terms of power between the school and the community. That's when schools do better. That's when kids do better. And you know, in districts that I've worked in, it gets harder to do that as kids get older. You know, in middle and high school, there becomes more of a disconnect between parents and the school just naturally. It doesn't mean anybody's doing it intentionally. Sometimes the argument is, I hear schools say, well, kids are growing up, so they should be less around, less connected to their parents. But it causes this rift of more disengagement. Sometimes it's framed as families being disengaged, but sometimes it's not that. They're just, they have less ways to be meaningfully connected. I was thinking of the volunteers that Krista mentioned. That typically falls away in middle and high school, and it's one way that families can be connected. So anyways, that's the power piece is really important. Power is a big part of bullying too, and how power is used. And one thing too, maybe just to say what I think is important here, practicing extreme empathy, which I don't know if that's actually a term, but it's really just being very meaningfully connected to the feelings of others. And we as adults need to do that really well, and especially with bullying investigations. Communication is so important, and relationship. I mean, this all comes down to relationship. So every parent, I always hope, has at least one or two people adults they can go to in the school to help them solve problems. And if they don't have that, it's good to find out who that would be, because especially in a bigger school, I think of Mount View in the high school, it's really important to have at least one or two people that you can go to kind of, I don't know, be your advocate or be your inroad to a bigger school. So anyways, that's enough for me.
Well, I kind of wanted to touch on that just like a little bit with the advocacy thing, like Laura brought up as well, or maybe not brought up, but like, I don't know, it made me think like maybe there should be like I mean, I know that you get those forms, right? If they fill them out, you get so that is a central person that is going to be an advocate, right? So that might be, it's probably mentioned in there. I think it's mentioned in there that they do have that central person, but also, a branch of that central person at each one of the schools might be important, like you said, so that they feel like there's at least that person that's there to listen.
Absolutely.
If there's a way to do that, that would be great.
Yeah.
I just had one last comment, and I think everybody else said everything I was thinking. One last comment, and it goes back to, the comment of a lot of kids have said things happen, it falls on deaf ears. But my question is, in our document, I really want to be sure that there's checks and balances. Right now in our schools, we have that one person that you can go to, but that one person is also human. That one person may not understand all discrimination, microaggression, all kind of, the issues that a child might be going through. And I don't mean mentally, I mean like what consists of bullying. They may not actually, understand all types of bullying. And it's sometimes what I have seen in the past in these schools is you have that one person, but there's no checks and balances. So it gets stuck at that level. And you can try to raise the bar higher and go above, but it's almost like an avalanche effort, right? The higher ups don't necessarily want to go against somebody who's already decided or somebody who's already said, oh, this is not a big issue. I just want to make sure in this policy document that we really, really look at those checks and balances, that there is more than one eye looking at this. There is more than one person making a blanket judgment. And those people that are doing it are trained properly in all types of discrimination, be it religious, be it sexual, be it, gender, be it whatever the case may be. But they need to be one of our top leaders when it comes to diversity training, or being trained in diversity and understanding and inclusion. And I really want to make sure it's not just based on one person saying, okay, check mark, I don't believe that this is truly an issue or versus this is. I mean, am I missing something, or do we really have that checks and balances in our policy?
I agree that needs to be there. Absolutely.
Because right now, whenever we've always talked about this one person. I'm just not sure. And
well, at least.
Yeah, it says at least, and that's the problem that I have. That at least sometimes means one person.
Yeah.
in our schools, and we don't have like a committee that looks it over with, people from different backgrounds and people from, different walks of life or different experiences looking at this saying, no, I mean, this is considered something that we need to address.
I
Yeah.
guess that would be the lack of the health department.
Well, I
Maybe.
So I think we do that pretty well in this plan. Definitely better than the previous one. I guess different ways that's done, Asima, and I think this is probably the best way to approach this. So the investigation process itself is designed to be unbiased and to be based on evidence and basically talking to people, gathering evidence, and determining whether bullying happened or not. The piece that is additional now that I was doing this anyways, but with the bullying reports coming to central office, that allows me to do a few different things. I consult quite a bit on the front end of that. So I'll talk to administrators as they're going into an investigation and support them that way. Those first steps are really, really important in a bullying investigation. That's there can be a lot of damage done if it's done recklessly, or not recklessly, but if there are mistakes made. Typically people aren't trying to cause issues through an investigation, but it happens. And the other piece that I look at too is data, the frequency of bullying reports within schools too, which is pretty important, and it's an indicator of school culture. We use that for internal use and through discussions with administrators and counselors too. So it's a good indicator of work that might need to be done in terms of school culture too. If bullying is really frequent in a building, and I'm thinking of examples from other districts that I worked in, that's a deeper issue than just a couple kids that might be acting up or a couple kids that might be victims. So, I'm really confident actually that this revision of the plan is a good structure for us to make sure that we're looking at situations in depth and resolving them, and not just kicking the can down the road, as one of the comments said, or sweeping things under the rug.
So maybe I'm on the wrong page here, but so I apologize if I am. The one person reference, I thought that was in terms of the expectation that a student would have at least one person they feel safe going to, and then that person. So that's the part of the plan that I think we're talking about, right? Is that, am I on the right page here? And so that if that one person brushes off the student, I mean, they're obligated to report anything that the student reports to them, or is there, I think that's the part that
so
is concerning.
It is a lot of different ways that reports can come through. Staff or faculty can submit reports, right? So if they hear something and a student does not want to report, a faculty or staff member may still report that and should still report that. Parents, guardians, community members can report. We have that anonymous online form now that is another way to do that. Students themselves can report, and I know there are administrators, and this is the responsible thing to do, that will accept just a written narrative from a student, even if it's not on the form. Like, that should not be a barrier to the report happening, because that would be considered anonymous if they didn't put their name. So there's a lot of different ways to report. And honestly, for when I was a school counselor, we always recommended, if you see a pattern, basically a pattern of targeted behavior that might be bullying, it's better to file a report with the administrator than to not, because then at least they can investigate it. And we shouldn't be the ones determining in advance whether it is or is not. It's better to file than not.
Brendan, the conversation kind of brought me to looking at a little deeper at part E on page 10 in the report. And I'm unclear if this is the only place where student survey and data collection information is identified in this report, but it makes it says that once every 4 years, we'll administer a survey about school climate. Okay. It doesn't say who looks at that data or when and how that becomes relevant. And then it says, additionally, the district will annually report bullying incidents to the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education, which I believe is statute, for lack of a better word. But it's making me wonder, like, how does this get reported to us? How to this body, the school committee, as an accountability measure for the district, so that 5 years down the line, we don't continue to get a battery of emails and reports of students who are continuing to tell us these graphic and horrible stories. I mean, we want to be able to see the pattern of improvement, and if it's not being reported to the school committee, we have no accountability measure to do that.
It's a good point. So I'm going back to the winter, last winter, when we were doing this as a committee. We did not get that far as getting into the details of the sharing out. I think we could even just simply put in here that I think this subcommittee would be a good place for it to live, but we could just say a school committee, just in case, that survey, just like we're doing now with feedback, survey results could be will be shared with school committee and administration for continual improvement of this plan, or something to that effect.
I'd like to see that. Thank you.
Could try to draft something here. If people think, I imagine, sounds like everyone would agree with that. And that's a good thing to do too, because then we can actually look at over time how things are going and make adjustments. So let me take a crack at that.
At this point, are we ready to bring it to school committee?
I just wanted to ask on this, if this is sufficient, this particular sentence here.
I like the sentence. I think it could go underneath the additionally, so that it includes both the survey and the report.
Underneath. Yeah. Oh, hold on.
I do that.
Right.
Okay.
But I mean, if anybody else wants to speak to it, obviously, I'd love to hear their thoughts.
My only question would be in terms of the when. And I don't know if we should determine that here or else another time, or leave it open-ended. But I would think that a time of every year, every 4 years, to coincide with the at least once every 4 years, if that's already speaking to the when enough.
Quarterly.
I was, that might be a little intense, but I was thinking every 2 years maybe would be a good time period.
Could we do it annually along with what gets sent to the state?
Yeah, I prefer annually.
I like annually.
Okay.
Well, yeah, let me find the best spot. Annually. It's not in a good spot there. There it is. I think that's good. Right here. Okay.
Can I just ask one final question? Because now I'm confused about the one person thing. Is there one person that's reviewing all of these bullying like claims? I don't know if that's the right word. Or is it that each student in the building will be able to report to any one person that they feel they can? Because I'm just confused on this at this point.
Yeah, this came out of basically making sure, or whenever possible, making sure that students had at least one person, like a trusted adult, to go to. That's not always who they report to. It can be, like we were saying, anonymous or, done in different ways. So, that it's not that one person is reviewing. We, this data is actually, it does come to me. This is something we discuss also at our central office administrator meetings as well, to look at different trends, and also with the principals. So there's a few different places that this would go. Also, the counselors and psychologists are definitely involved, and we're always talking about anti-bullying and prevention. So, but the reports themselves are done at the building level, come to central office where they're filed and reviewed, and depending on the situation, it could be a few different people at central office doing that, especially for the complex ones, or ones that are administrators might need more support on.
Okay, that makes sense. Just the last conversation got me a little lost there.
Yeah. No problem. So Asma, you were asking about if this is ready, if people believe this is ready to go in front of the full committee. And I can make these revisions that I've noted in the columns if we wanted to put it on Monday's agenda.
Yes. That was one of our goals, is to keep moving forward this year and make some progress.
So I'll make a motion to recommend to the full school committee. Sorry, help me out here with the wording. The bullying prevention and intervention plan for approval.
Do we need to add with these edits? Do we need to add that language, or?
I don't believe so, since we didn't start the motion before we
Okay.
edited.
Okay, all right. And the edit that I suggested about reversing the order of consequences is part of what we're approving. Is that right? Or recommending?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Yep, the motion includes with all the changes we just made.
Terrific. Great. Thank you.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Second.
Great, let's do a roll call vote. Member Woodland.
Woodland, yes.
Member Ayala.
Ayala, yes.
Member Bennett.
Bennett, yes.
Member Christianbaum.
Kirchenbaum, yes.
Member Longbaleo.
Longbill, yes.
And I vote yes. Passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Yay. Awesome. Let's go back. I'm going to go back to my agenda. So now we can start let me see, what time is it? It's 8:32. I'd like to just make sure that I'd like to end by 9 if possible, but before we go to item number 4, can we talk about our next meeting so that we're not kind of doing it at the end, last minute? What dates is everyone available? Since December is coming, it's going to be tricky. As for myself, I'm not available after the 10th.
I'd wonder about looking at the beginning of January. Where December's tomorrow.
Yep. How does the 7th look for people?
Sorry, the December or
January.
okay. Yeah.
It's okay for me.
Can we just double check? There's nothing for other subcommittees yet there. I just want to make sure we've had a couple problems of overlapping with other subcommittees so that not all of our members can attend.
Right.
So I'm hoping that in the future we can sort that out. I know the schedules right now are crazy, but I think it would be fair.
Yep. I don't think there's anything on the schedule for them yet.
No, I just double checked. At least what's posted, there's nothing between December 14th and January 11th.
Would that be 7?
The 7th then.
Yeah, 7 p.m.
Yes.
7 p.m. Okay. Let Rebecca.
Okay. Awesome. That way we're not doing it at the end and rushing. Okay, let's start the policy review of 6437, promoting civil rights and prohibiting harassment, discrimination, and hate crimes.
Okay, I'll just get it on the screen here.
Do we need a motion to enter into discussion on this, or do we just go full steam ahead?
I
Pretty sure we
believe,
just go full steam ahead.
yeah, I think we can go full steam ahead since we're not actually sending this to school committee or anything.
Okay.
And discussing back and forth the changes.
Is that big enough for people to read?
Yes.
So, if I could speak to this, I did a little research on a district that I work in to see what policy is sort of what symmetry there is between our policies and their policies. And what I found is this policy seems to be broken out into 5 separate policies. So I think I tried to send it out, the copies of those policies in a folder. I'm not sure if it actually got distributed to everybody. But I would, Brendan, if I send it to you, is it appropriate for you to share it with the others?
Usually Rebecca, right?
Rebecca? Okay.
Yeah,
I'll send it to Rebecca, but basically there were 5 policies. One was non-discrimination and civil rights. One was sexual harassment. One was non-discrimination on the basis of disability. One was gender identity support. And another one was bullying prevention and intervention. So I would suggest that since this is such a meaty area, I really do feel that it needs to be parsed out to provide adequate protections and to really ensure that we cover all subgroups, effectively. That would be my take on this, because I think that this just feels really cumbersome for me.
Yeah, I think if you look at the MASC policy book, they have it 5 minimum, if not more. And yeah, it's quite a big one. That actually I was concerned going through it without having legal review. But I've never gone through a policy of this nature. The other ones I have experience in are very different. So if others have better experience, I will be very excited to learn from you.
Linda Long, were you going to jump on there?
No. I'm
Okay.
Just in case I unmuted myself.
So
Yeah.
Laura, to be clear, you're proposing to combine some of these policies? Who is proposing that this is split into 6? And
So I was actually submitting that this larger policy would probably be more useful if it was broken down into 5 or more smaller policies. as is the case in the district that I work for, and as Member Woodland says is the case for the MASC policies as well. So that's my feeling, is that we should dissect these, parse it a little bit, and be clear for each area.
And just to answer, there was a question earlier, I think, Laura, you might have asked about the last time these were reviewed, 2011 for this particular policy. So, and I think it is pretty unwieldy, and 6 pages is a lot for a policy. And I'm just going to repeat what Laura said. All these are so important that they really bear breaking down, because we want to have clarity, about the procedures here. So I would definitely support that.
Can we get copies of, in Ed Sub, what we've done before is we've looked at the MASC guidance wording policies as they have drafted them, and use those as a guide. I'm wondering if we could get those copies distributed, and then see how those sit and adjust them to fit our needs for our district.
Definitely.
Yeah, I think that would really help, because separating it out on our own, I was just thinking to myself, wow, that's going to be a big challenge.
Yeah.
Is that something that we can reach out to Tracy or field rep to do? Is that usually what Ed Sub would do? Or how would you distribute the MASC ones?
I mean, we could download, we could get them from the MASC site, either Rebecca or I, or both, and send them out. And I think that's a good place to start, because we're starting with, exemplars, or, they've done a lot of good thinking around that. So that'd be a good launching pad, I think, in that conversation.
Does this policy have to be reviewed by legal? Just thinking out loud on someone. I mean, it just seems really important, and like what Linda Woodland said, kind of someone that knows more about this, I guess.
Yeah, I think all our policies, correct me if I'm wrong, Brendan, that they have to be reviewed by legal, but if we're following the MASC type of separation and guideline, and we're adding to it, I don't think that would be a problem. We would still have it reviewed in the end.
Right, and we would track what we're changing from the MASC policy too, because that's where we would need to be careful. Anything straying from that we can do, but we just have to make sure it's okay to do legally.
Okay, thanks.
So it sounds like we will hold on editing this until the next meeting, when we can review these sample policies.
I agree, because otherwise I think we're gonna, do some work that might have to be repeated unnecessarily.
Okay, that's good.
In that case, I think we're at the end of our agenda items, which means I can take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Great, let's go down the list. Member Woodland,
Woodland, yes.
Member Ayala,
Ayala, yes.
Member Bennett,
Bennett, yes.
Member Christianbaum,
Kirschenbaum, yes.
Member Longbelial.
Longbelial, yes.
I vote yes. Have a great night, and see you guys on the 7th, if not earlier, of
You
January.
too. Thank you. Have nice
Happy
meeting. Good meeting.
holidays.
Thanks.
Thanks,
Happy
everyone.
holidays, folks. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.